Hey guys, Chris from Propel here, and today I wanted to talk to you about a security item that we offer in our shop called Hexlox. And as many of you know, there's a lot of different options for securing your bike. You could use a U-lock, a chain lock, and you have folding locks, all these different options to secure your bike to a bike rack or something of that sort. But it's not always so easy to secure the smaller parts of the bike, like the front wheel or the saddle or the seat post, that sort of stuff. And there's many different products on the market, but this Hexlox is the one that we really recommend. So I'm going to show, this is that little Hexlox display that we have in the store. And the Hexlox is actually consists of this key, and then the actual lock is this little magnetic piece that actually goes right inside these smaller pieces. So this is set to demonstrate like the seat post collar, for example. You take this and you just basically insert it and you pull it out. So this prevents somebody from sticking their tool in there. Now, you don't have the convenience of that quick release, but it's also very difficult for a thief to get into this. So you take this Hexlox key and you basically just stick it in firmly and then just pull it straight out. That's how you pull the Hexlox out of the different part. And you can also use this is set to demonstrate like the front wheel or the rear wheel. The front wheel, this would be like a normal quick release axle. Normally you'll find on your bike like this, you have this quick release axle, and you would replace this with the Hexlox axle. And so instead of having those quick release bits, you have a little bolt head on the back here. Sorry, my hands are shaking a little bit. And then on the other side, you just have the bolt that goes in. So you could just take this Hexlox, pop it in there, and there you go. So when you remove the Hexlox, you can just use your normal, Allen key to remove the bolt. So as long as you have a couple of those Allen keys on you, you're fine to remove whatever you might need off your bike. I mean, having that quick release, I think in an urban environment doesn't really make a lot of sense. So that's a great way to go. This is set to show you a solid axle. So for example, if you have, most commonly you might find this if you have like an internally geared hub, like a Enviolo hub, or maybe you have like a Shimano internal hub. Generally you're going to have a solid axle. Most of the time on a standard bicycle, you're not going to find a solid axle, except for maybe on like the really cheap bikes. But the internal hubs generally have a solid axle, although some of them might have a through axle or a quick release skewer. Like for example, a roll-off hub, for example, has a quick release skewer, so you'd use that. But this works all in the same way, so you'd replace that threaded bolt with that. But basically, this is what those bolts look like if you have a solid axle. So you would just replace them with that, and there's some different sizes. And if you need help with sizing, you could reach out to us. We have all these listed on our website, so if you wanted to order them, or if you wanted to see more tech specs, you can see that. We're also working to put together kits for specific bikes just to make it a little bit easier. Many people have the same sort of request. They want to lock down the front wheel, the saddle, seat post, and maybe a couple other bits on the bike. I usually recommend putting one in the stem as well as the stem faceplate. That'll prevent somebody from removing the handlebars or removing the stem. The idea is if you have an expensive fork on your bike, if somebody removes the stem, they can actually pull the whole fork off the bike pretty easily, and that's definitely a concern. So one other detail I want to address about Hexlox is you might have a through axle on your front or rear wheel, and in that scenario, you might need a special part to adapt that. Now, one of the common Hexlox scenarios that we encounter is a Suntour Q-lock through axle. This system works a bit different than other through axles. Most through axles thread in on one side, but this one uses a compression clamp. And historically, it's always been challenging. We haven't had a solution that works with this, but Hexlox did introduce a system that works with it, and it's called the Q-lock front axle. And so you would need to use this in addition with a Hexlox to pop in there, and you can secure your front Suntour fork. Suntour is really common in making forks for e-bikes, so this is a really great way to go, and you don't have to fuss with running a lock through your front wheel or that sort of thing. You just worry about locking your frame to whatever you're locking it to, and makes it really simple for quick lockups. And this is what that axle looks like. It's a two-piece system, so you have this opens up because as I said, it doesn't have threads on this side, so instead it just threads together and it compresses against the fork. There's some other Thru axles that you might need to work with. Many of them have that standard quick release because usually suspension forks are made for mountain bikes, and you want to have that real ease of use of taking the wheel on and off of the bike if you're fixing a flat or whatever the case may be. But for us, especially when you're thinking about security, a lot of times it's riding the bike in an urban environment. And e-bikes, a lot of times we're using suspension forks, and sometimes high-end suspension forks on e-bikes. And you have that quick release. It really doesn't make sense in an urban environment. So swapping it for something like this, that's a normal threaded that actually uses a Allen key bolt. I could just pull this out of here. I wanted to show you this because this company, Robert Axel Project, is a company that makes all sorts of different size axles. We have them available through our shop as well, but they use a Allen key bolt in the one side, so that enables you to put a Hexlox inside there and to lock it down securely. So this is one size, and you can see it's marked off. This is a part number. It's 125 millimeter M15 1.5 thread with the 15 millimeter axle diameter. And there's all different axle diameters, threads, that sort of thing. So that's going to be specific to the bike manufacturer, or in this case, the front fork manufacturer. So if you have any questions about that, you could reach out to us, but we'll put all the specs on our website for that as well. And really, that's mostly what I want to cover. I should mention that the Hexlox is available in a 4 millimeter, 5 millimeter, 6 millimeter, and 8 millimeter. You might be wondering why they skip 7. It's just not really used that commonly on bikes. There are some scenarios where it is used, but most modern bikes don't really use a 7 millimeter Allen key. So that should really cover the gamut of what you need. If you have any questions about Hexlox, just leave them in the comments below. Or if you have experience with Hexlox, leave them in the comments. I think it's a really great product. Actually, I said the last thing. I'm going to say one more thing, actually. So the keys. They're not as unique as some of the other keys out there. It's basically each shop has several different keys, and generally you get an A, B, or C key, and that specific letter is specific to that shop. So don't count on it being the most unique key out there, but I mean, the reality is any of these measures, you're taking a significant step in improving the security of your bike and the parts on it. So I wouldn't be as concerned that somebody's just going to happen to be walking around with that same Hexlox key. And you might be wondering, oh yeah, I could just take a magnet, pull it out, or something like that. It's really not that easy, and it's quite a job to take that out if you wanted to go and try to do that. But it's really secure. I mean, it's very difficult to get that out. You probably have to drill it out or something like that to actually get the Hexlox out of there. You can't just use a magnet or anything like that. There's some videos out there showing the security of that as well. But I think that's it. If you have any questions, just reach out, leave them in the comments below. Always happy to help. We got the links below if you wanted to purchase Hexlox or any of the axles, and we're always happy to help. Well, see you soon.